Don't you love it when things are both easier and more affordable? Like when the rain washes your car for you. Or like when you save up to 10% by bundling your renters and auto insurance with USAA. Bundle with USAA and start saving. Get a quote today.
Vitamin Water was born in New York because New Yorkers wanted more. Like more flavor to go with all the flavor. A refreshing drink after climbing 6 flights of stairs to a walk-up apartment. Or standing in the subway station in 100-degree heat. Focus when I have an 8-hour shift. And Triple X after I was out all night at a club. Call Triple X. Drink vitamin water. It's from New York.
Hilton brings you new ways to stay. With experiences that let you capture the glory days. Introducing the Graduate Hotels. Each inspired by local college towns, these stays are always original and never boring. Get in touch with traditions all across the country and enjoy a stay that's a class above the rest. Book at Graduate Hotels with Hilton Honors Points at Hilton.com. It's a win-win. Hilton, for the stay.
From the Fifth Quarter Studio in Madison, Wisconsin, you're listening to the Coaching Youth Hoops Podcast.
They're playing basketball.
Basketball. Here's our hosts, Steve Collins. And Bill Flitter.
Welcome. The Coaching Youth Hoops. We're laughing because basketball season's about to start, and when this goes live, it will be day 2. Coach Collins is not taping this on 11/19 because my hair is being pulled out today because my team is being picked. So anyway.
So you have an off season, Coach. I don't have an off season. I coach year round.
I don't have an off season. All right. So before we jump into this great topic, off season,
I've been teasing Coach for a while that there's no off season. Like, off season.
I haven't had an off season since. Hey, I'll tell you a quick story. Walking out of Costco today, I see a bunch of geese that are going south, and then I walk a little bit farther and I see these ducks coming. There's a pond by the Costco. Yeah. And I'm texting one of my friends in Wausau going, oh my gosh, it's like, and then he sends me a picture of him and his brothers just went pheasant hunting. It's like, I thought of you as these ducks are flying overhead. Anyway, ducks are hard to hit because they're like jet fighters. If anyone's ever seen a duck fly, it's not like, they're hard to hit. Anyway,
I've never gone duck hunting. Even when I was went deer hunting, but never went duck hunting.
Yeah, never went deer hunting. I mean, went once deer hunting. I have this long story.
Bow and arrow too. I was at.
That's good. I would do that. But you got to be more serious and you got to practice.
Practice a lot
because that's not fair to the deer if you're not going to hit them right in the right spot. No. And then you got to go track them too. All right. So before we do that, let's give a big shout out to our sponsor,
Game Changer.
Yes.
Coaches, if you need an app to record games, get stats, Game Changer is your answer. They just launched a new feature for annotation. So now you can go and review film, mark it up how you want, share it with your players. Check it out at gc.com/coaching youth hoops.
Yep. And then because in a couple days, Black Fridays are on the corner, Coach, we have a little tease on our Black Friday special, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely. We got a special Black Friday. Basically, it's everything you need for your season in a box: offense, defense, practice plans, transitions, lobs, shooting. I mean, literally everything for one low price. We're going to offer it at a discount only on Black Friday. So check it out if you go to coachingyouthhoops.com/Black-Friday. We'll put the link in the show notes, but sorry if you're listening to this after Black Friday.
Yep. If it's June and you're listening to this, you're in the middle of the boat and getting a nice tan. Sorry. You have to wait till next
to bookmark that URL because every year we'll do a Black Friday special for you guys.
But you missed it. Sorry. That's all right. So what's our topic today, Coach?
Topic today is motivating the talented but unmotivated player. This has come up a lot, and also I had a great one today that came through, which was how do I is a youth team. It was a grade school coach. He has a couple very talented AAU players coming on his team. And he says they play year round. They're very skilled. The other players on the team are not quite up to their caliber, but these kids want to play for their grade school, which is awesome to hear. So he was struggling with how do I keep these kids also motivated? They're very talented, right? But yet I got to bring up the other kids to their level and don't want these other kids to get bored. Every level deals with this, your level, youth level, right? But how do you deal with that? And I think there's different, you got to get to the root cause. What's causing the talented person to be not motivated? And what does that mean? They're lackluster in practice. They're just not giving it their all. They think they're arrogant and think they're really good, right?
Well, then I think you got to challenge them. First of all, you got to challenge if they. I've had this. I've had talented but unmotivated. I've had untalented and very motivated. I've had, talented and motivated. Those are like the unicorns, those are the ones I love. I think it's part of it. Part of it is, again, this is from a teacher of 30 some plus years that was frustrated today because his students aren't doing all their homework and not necessarily me, not necessarily motivating them the way I needed to. So I think you're right. It's about getting to the root cause. And often the unmotivated is bored. And they're not being challenged. And I'll use a math analogy. They're taking algebra class and they should be in pre-calc. So there's no motivation. It's like you and I can talk about all the stuff that we do. We're motivated because it's challenging. It's stimulating. It's exciting. It's fun. And a 12-year-old is no different than a 50-something-year-old. So it's the same thing. It's like, there needs to be both intrinsic and extrinsic. And as the teacher, as the coach, you got to go try to find those things.
And what do you mean by intrinsic and extrinsic motivation?
What do I personally mean for my intrinsic and extrinsic?
No. Just explain
what's the difference
what's the
between
practicality
self motive, like intrinsic is was inside of you. I think my parents did with myself and my brother. Something happened because we both are very intrinsically motivated. It's a self motivation. It's like I took over a basketball program that hadn't won in 30 years, so you have to have a little intrinsic, and you probably got to be a little crazy too. But it was that there was no extrinsic, there was no outside motivation for me to take that job or to want to turn it around or to become the best coach and hopefully run one of the better programs in the Midwest. There was no extrinsic. No one wanted this job. So it had to be intrinsic. It had to be that I could do things. I could build a kind of a family community. I could be, learn both from the players and teach the players life lessons. I could do that. That had to be intrinsic. And the good teachers, there has to be a lot of intrinsic motivation. Like, I had a tough day today just because I didn't think I was getting to them, but I'm going to go right back at it tomorrow because it's the reason I've done it for so long. There's an intrinsic, there's a motivation inside of me that, okay, this is what I'm meant to do and I'm going to make a difference. The extrinsic would be if they paid me the wage that I think maybe I'm worth. But I didn't go into teaching to become wealthy. It was an intrinsic motivation. It was not an extrinsic motivation. Right. Anyway, is that
so how do you then motivate a talented player? And
so let's take a
the scenario
unmotivated 12-year-old. How do I motivate them?
Right. And exactly. So
Yeah.
So what I a lot of times do is I will put them in a leadership role if I'll assess that, of course. But and what that means for me is I'll have them teach certain things. I will lean on them for questions so they are challenged and they're at least challenged by my questions. And if they are motivated to, get better, they're going to know all the plays and they're going to know what to do. So a lot of times I'll do that, or I'll put them in charge of picking what we're going to do, the snack we're going to have post game, or the music we're going to listen to in the gym. And the reason for that is to keep them engaged and involved. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So all the teachers that are coaches too that are listening to this, it's like it's a teaching technique called scaffolding, in which you basically help them to where they are and learn new concepts. So the goal as the teacher or the coach is that they become self-motivated, they become their own learners, and that they can do it by themselves. Trust me, Steph Curry had a dad and a trainer and all that stuff, but there was some self-regulated learning going on there that he knew what he needed to do. The story goes that he played AAU freshman year and didn't play like the next 3 years in high school. And because he knew that he had to get a skill set he wasn't even, to get a skill set that he could become Steph Curry at some point. He wasn't, he was too skinny. He was smaller than the rest of he wasn't going to stand out in any of those tournaments. So, it becomes, a way of applying learning so that they can do it themselves. Because I mean, you laugh that I'm part Dracula, I'm part vampire, but it's like I'm gonna go eat and then I'm gonna come back here because I want to get stuff done for what we're doing and what I need to do. And I have a stack of, I mean, that's that's where that kind of falls. But I think it's hard, it's harder with a 12-year-old because it's hard to figure out what's going to motivate and and I have found, at least with 12-year-old boys, I found competition. I found constraints. I found things like that. Like, so Johnny is 3 points better than Davion. Great. Then Johnny is going to start down 0-3 against Davion, and they're going to go 1-on-1 to 5, something. And it's going to tick him off because I do that. But I'm motivating. Like, I still want to win. Like, the good ones are still going to want to do what they need to do. That's kind of my
and I'm
thought.
going to assume again, I mean, because this is an unmotivated player means that they're showing up for practice. They want to, they want to be there, but what they feel is, maybe the talent level they see is not where they are, right?
Right.
Or there's what, and I think that's what you were hinting at more in that particular issue, right? They feel that they're better than the rest of the team.
Right. And they think they're more talented, and maybe they are as a 12-year-old, but they might not be as a 15-year-old. So that's where you got to try to do some of those things for lack of motive. I mean, again, it's keeping the mind moving. It's keeping them motivated. And to be honest with you, sometimes maybe they got to move up a level. Maybe they got to play 1-on-2. They got to figure ways to challenge them. And I've had kids in this class that don't belong in my class. They're just too smart for me. They're smarter than me in some. It's like, okay, well, how do I challenge them? Because that's where a lot of, the quote unquote unmotivated is. I don't think it's similar to what I've always said this. There's no kid that's a non-reader. Every kid's a reader, as I'm sitting in front of a stack of books behind me. Every kid's a reader. The only thing you haven't done is you haven't put the right book in front of them.
Right.
So it's similar to this. If they're unmotivated, it means you haven't found the right secret sauce to motivate them. Or they should be out for cross country. Maybe that's the case too. Don't know. It's
But we're assuming again, the scenario was they were talented basketball players that were unmotivated, right?
Yeah, and if they're talented basketball players, my guess is I call it ego food. Everyone loves to feed their ego food. And if they're good at it, they're going to want to keep doing it. So then how do we motivate them? And the issue is it falls to the coach, it falls to the parents, it falls to what you're throwing at them, I think.
So basically what you're saying is, in a drill, change the rules for that particular person to make it a little bit harder on them.
Yeah. I'm not going to give a kid that knows all of the algebra again. I'm going to give them geometry because I want to challenge them. And it's like, I'm not going to. Yeah.
What about rewarding their effort? That probably is not going to get them anywhere. I'm just thinking of like scenarios that may come up in coaches' conversations.
I don't think it works. Right? It maybe works short term, but anybody that's been a parent has quickly found out that doesn't work long term. It can work short term. There has to be something else motivating, I think.
Well, and if you think about that situation, you have a 12-year-old who's kind of a standout. Even if you had these challenges where you have to get X number of shots up throughout the day or through the season, I should say, right? And they're going to stand out on the top potentially, right? Because they're going to put the work in. That's not going to motivate them anymore. They're going to get the trophy at the end, whatever you give out, right?
Right.
But I think the other thing that we're not talking about is controlling their ego and the culture around that as well, right?
Well, that's interesting.
How do you because you want them to be part of the team. You don't want them to, as you're the talented basketball player. I'm not. You throw me the ball, I drop it. You roll your eyes. Right. Or, my job, you take every possession, you always want the ball and you're trying to score. Right. And then there's me just watching you play 1 versus 5. Right. So
what does that do?
Right? Yeah, that hurts everybody. So I think I try to, as best I can for, again, we're using 12-year-old in this case, say, 1, that's life. You're going to be working with people the rest of your life that are more or less talented than you are. You may at some point be the less talented person in the room. And how would you want to be treated? Right. So I need you to be positive and uplifting to your other teammates so they do get better, so you can get better.
Right.
And
what is it? The rising tide raises the boat.
That's right. Yeah. I say that all the time. And even, I have a girl that, came to mind who she's extremely talented, and she does get frustrated at her teammates. And I'm trying to help her understand and work through those things. And she's talented. She's just gifted as an athlete. She is motivated. She's hardworking. She does, she checks all of those boxes. And I wanted her to continue to grow. So she's not that she's non-motivated. I just don't like the attitude of, I'm better than that person, right? And that's a culture thing that you need to obviously squash. Does that make sense, Coach? Is that
100%
like that side of it as well? I
love that side. Yeah, I agree.
So, okay, so let's recap this then. So how do you motivate a talented, unmotivated player? What's the advice you would give coaches?
I would challenge them. I would give them different opportunities within different constraints. I would try to meet them where they are. And then, you got to think about your practice. That's where coaching youth hoops would come into play, Coach.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I'm just saying, it's like you want the practice is your classroom. So how do you motivate and how do you do some of those things? I think is really important. What do you think?
Yeah, and I would add one more thing to that is give them responsibility to teach, to help, to serve, right? And have them explain it. And so they feel like they're contributing to the team at the same time teaching their other players. And like you said, raising the tide to lift all the boats, right? So
love that. I love that. All right. Till next week, Coach.
Till next week.
All right. Bye.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.